I'm here with Jack Harington, Technical Partnerships Lead at Oracle Red Bull Racing. Jack, the 2026 regulations represent one of the biggest changes in Formula One history. A lot of different opinions about it. What are you most excited about?
I think the simple answer is everything, Fritz. I mean, one of the beauties of Formula One is that there's not many sports where the rules change every year. And as you say, this year is the biggest change of rules that we've experienced really ever. Now there's lots of different things that are happening this year, but it's just the challenge of having to adapt to them, push your engineers, push your team to make sure that you're getting the most out of the package that you can bring to the track for race one, but also it being largely unknown as to how everybody else has performed and how everybody else has adapted to those rules. So it's the ever-changing landscape of the sport. It's the challenge of going up against other people and seeing if your engineers have done the best job.
And we're sitting here still a few weeks from the start of the season. And the fun part for me is like nobody really knows how it's all going to play out.
Exactly. I mean, it's like, I always liken it to you running a track race, but everybody's running that race in a different stadium. And you don't know who's the winner until everybody gets to the finishing line. So you can't compare yourself until you get to that first race. And so, as you say, we're heading towards Melbourne now. And I, for one, cannot wait for those lights to go off.
All right, well, let's talk a little bit about the new regulations, maybe a little regulations 101. This isn't like banking regulations. This is going to be fun. What are some of the big changes?
Well, you're putting me on the spot here, first of all, because there are a lot of changes this year. I guess let's start with the cars themselves. So the cars have got smaller. The reason for that is to try and make racing on some of the smaller circuits like Monaco a bit easier for the drivers. So they're a bit shorter, a bit narrower. The tyres have also changed on the cars. They've got narrow as well, which means there's less grip available to the drivers. So the actual size of the car and how they look will look very different to what you may have experienced in previous years of the sport. So that's the chassis. Then you have the aerodynamics, and this is where things start to get fun. So you might be familiar with DRS. DRS, for those that didn't know, is a wing that opened at the back of the car when you were within a second of the car in front that gave you extra straight line speed and enabled you to pass. This year that's gone. This year we have something called overtake mode. Now overtake mode is using the battery in the engine to give you extra power when you're within a second of the car in front to give you that extra edge to overtake. But not only there, we've also got active aero. Now active aero is where the rear wing opens like DRS did, but the front wing also opens as well. Now this doesn't depend on whether you're within 1 second of the car in front. There'll be designated zones around the track where you can utilize this active aero. So pretty exciting to see what happens there. And then you have boost mode, and boost mode is a button on the steering wheel that allows you to deploy your energy of your battery wherever you like around the circuit. But obviously you have a limit to how much energy your battery has, so you have to be very careful about when and where you use that battery. And then finally, probably the biggest regulation change of them all is the engines. So we have built a brand new engine for 2026. The engine is completely different to previous years. There's a 50% split between what's powered by the internal combustion engine and what's powered by the battery. We're running on new sustainable fuels. We're removing one of the KERS system in the car, so we only have the MGUK. There is no carryover IP, and it's a huge challenge for not only us, but every team up and down the grid.
When you talked about energy boost, you went like that. So active aero, is that also something the driver is controlling?
Yes, essentially buttons on the steering wheel. If the steering wheel wasn't already as complex as it could be, we're adding more buttons onto it now. So yeah, very, very difficult for the drivers.
When I was driving on the road, I would pretend I had DRS. And so now I have to pretend I have those buttons, I guess.
Yeah, very good.
From a team perspective, what are the biggest challenges these regulations introduce?
I would say it is a challenge, but it's a challenge that we enjoy and what really drives our engineers and mechanics at Oracle Red Bull Racing. It's really the limited amount of time that you have to design the car and build it. So we would have only really started the design of this car, just under a year ago. And in that time, we've had to design everything from the ground up, largely in the digital world. So mainly digital twins are what we use for around 80% of our design process. So having great reliance on the technology that's powering those systems is huge for us. It's also about marginal gains. In these cars, you can't leave any performance on the table. So you've got to push every part of that bodywork to see what's going to bring you the fastest lap time. But overall, it's part of the fun of the game, right? This is what drives us as a team. This is what drives us as a sport. This is why we are the world's most advanced sport you can come across. And so, yes, it's a challenge, but one that we really relish and enjoy.
I mean, it sounds like adaptability, flexibility is going to be the name of the game for the team in this season. How do you build that into all parts of how Oracle Red Bull Racing works?
You've hit the nail on the head. Probably should have mentioned it in my previous answer about the flexibility and agility that we need. These cars don't just get built at the beginning of the season and stay the same for the entire year. We have to tweak them as we find new parts, new performance in those parts, but also we have to tweak them for every circuit that we travel to. So agility and flexibility is huge for us. And the performance that things like Oracle Cloud Infrastructure give us to be able to scale our performance as and when we need it and stay being able to adapt to our situations is massive for us. And you've seen how it's brought us performance in previous years, and hopefully it'll bring us performance this year too.
I imagine that it also involves a lot of balance of innovation while trying to stay within the limits of these regulations.
Yeah, for those that might not be aware, we operate to a budget. Now our budget is called the cost cap, and the cost cap applies to every single team and essentially limits how much money you can spend on designing and running your car. In years gone by in Formula One, we could spend as much money as we wanted and really push every part, try every new technology, no matter whether it worked or it didn't. In modern Formula One, working within the cost cap, you can't afford to make mistakes. You can't afford to go down development routes that don't bring you performance, and you can't afford to rely on technology that is not going to give you performance. So, as I say, working with Oracle, we've developed a great relationship, and that we know when we use Oracle technology, it's going to bring performance to our car or business.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit more. And you mentioned OCI. We have our new multi-year partnership extension, so things are going well. But how much faster do you think race weekend decisions are today compared to, before Oracle put their name on the car?
I mean, going a long way back, we used to time our cars with a stopwatch, and that was it. And when the times got too slow, we'd bring the car in and make a pit stop. Now, we've worked with Oracle to develop some pretty fancy strategy simulation tools, because these cars no longer are just a stopwatch. We have 350 sensors positioned over the car, feeding back up to 2 terabytes of data after every session. And we have to comb through that data to inform us how we should run our car during a race weekend. And a lot of that data relates to strategy and how we make in-the-loop, real-time decisions during a race. Working with Oracle and migrating those workloads onto Oracle Cloud has enabled us to move faster, take in more data, run more simulations, in fact 25% more simulations than we were able to before. And I would say that since we've started working with Oracle, the results speak for themselves.
I think so. So now let's talk about practical terms. How does working with Oracle influence decision-making on a race weekend?
Oracle influences our decision-making in a multitude of different ways. We've talked about strategy simulations as being the prime example of how we interact with Oracle at the racetrack. And those are becoming ever more increasingly important to us, especially with the introduction of new regulations that are impacting our way that we go racing. But Oracle underpins nearly everything that we do leading up to a race weekend too. So how we design the car, the systems that those are running on, how we're running our engine, how the engine is bringing us performance during a race itself. Everything is important to our performance on track, and near enough everything that we do across our business is impacted by Oracle technology. So Monte Carlo race simulations being the main one. If we made a pit stop at the wrong time, we'll lose the race. We trust to run those simulations on Oracle. And so I think it's a huge performance benefit to us.
Let's go back to the regulations for a minute. So we've got all of these new changes coming. And so when you're testing the car and under these cost cap limits, how much does the ability to use OCI influence your management of energy, testing the aerodynamics and how the chassis is built, all the things you talked about before?
We The new regulations, as we've talked about, are huge and impact the cars running in many different ways. I think the main areas which are really going to be impacted on the strategy side of things are to do with power deployment, and especially the electrical deployment of the engine. In previous years, yes, we did take into account certain levels of when and where we should be using boost, but this year that will play a much more fundamental role. And having the ability to scale our simulations up whenever we need to in a cost-efficient manner is huge for us to adapt to those new variables that we're introducing into those simulations. So we will be looking at where around the circuit we should be using the boost mode, where around the circuit is active aero best to be utilised, and also how things are impacted when we are in overtake mode. How will that impact our overall run plan, how will that impact our tyre degradation. It really comes down to the amount of variables you can process, the amount of simulations that you can run, and the scalability, flexibility, and agility that Oracle Cloud Infrastructure gives us in that area. It really underpins the performance of our team on a race weekend.
One of the other simulations that we're able to help with the race team with is computational fluid dynamics. And with the new engine technology, I imagine that played an additional role in testing that capability as the engine was being built.
I mean, it was fundamental to what we were doing with the engine design. Computational fluid dynamics, as the name suggests, means that we can simulate fluid movement, but also gas movement through the internal combustion engine. And once you build an engine, you can't stick a camera down it to see if things are working. So we rely heavily on the CFD simulations that we're running on Oracle Cloud to ensure that all the iterations of design that we're going through are really picking out the ones that are bringing us the most performance. So the ability to have the power that Oracle Cloud provides us to run these simulations on, also the scalability that it gives us to be able to turn more of the cloud on when we need to run more simulations while still remaining within the budgetary environment that we operate in, has been absolutely massive. And so yeah, as I say, you're absolutely right. CFD is integral to how we have designed the engine and how we're going to go about racing it. And hopefully the simulations that we have run have identified the fastest engine possible.
Okay, well, we're about to start the season here soon, but how do you see this partnership, our renewed partnership, evolving over the next few years?
I am incredibly excited to see where this partnership goes. I mean, you can already see that it is the most integrated technology partnership in the whole of Formula One. It doesn't just impact how we go racing, it impacts how we perform as a business. And with, new emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence, in Formula One, we are all about pushing boundaries of technology. You have to stay at the forefront of technology to get those marginal gains. So on the car development front, I'm really excited to see how we can make things more efficient, more cost effective, utilising tools like AI. We've also got a lot of development happening at our factory. We're building our own wind tunnel that's going to be on site at our campus in Milton Keynes, and Oracle will be heavily involved with the running of that wind tunnel there. And so soon we will be one of the only teams with engine, chassis and wind tunnel all on the same campus. I just think that the amount of performance that we've already seen Oracle bring us in areas like strategy, in areas like connecting with our fans, or even designing an engine, I feel pretty comfortable and confident that this partnership will really keep us at the forefront as we move forward into this new set of regulations.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Off to the starting line.
So we get a good result.
That's right. Thanks, Jack.
Thank you.